Welcome back. Welcome to the 23-24 school year. It's going to be a good one. But I do need your attention, and we have plenty of seats down front. Before we get too far into our convocation assembly, I do want to give a shout out to the best food services staff in Massachusetts. They do an incredible job, so thank you very much. So welcome back. This morning we have all of you here, which is so incredible. We have honored guests, members of our school committee. We have Sarah Trulio, our vice chairperson. Kathleen Leiden, one of our new school committee members. And Amy Delenta, one of our school committee members. Unfortunately, Mr. Thompson and Ms. Rashilla Manzi could not be with us this morning, but I know they are here in spirit. And later, we have a very special guest at the end of the row there, Mr. Adam Oliveri. I'll introduce him later. So without further ado, Mrs. Trulio would like to say a few words of welcome.
Thank you, Gordon.
You're welcome.
Sorry, put this way. All right. Just myself here. I'm the short one in the crowd. Good morning, ELPS. It is an honor to represent the school committee today as we welcome you back to the 2023-2024 academic year. As Gordon just said, Greg Thompson, our chair, was unfortunately unable to attend today, but he did ask that I extend a terrific year to all of you as we gear up for the 23-24. As I was thinking about my remarks for today, I kept reflecting on the idea of school supplies. Our son was sitting last night in the living room, and he was organizing his binders, his folders, his pencils, his calculator, his pens. And as he was busy readying himself for Wednesday, I couldn't help but think about the supplies that weren't going to fit in his backpack. Had we, as a family, supplied him with enough love, persistence, courage, empathy, and passion to sustain him for the academic year? And then I took pause again, and I thought about the supplies in each of your classrooms. I'm confident, thanks to Ms. Blair, that you will have a budget that allows you to have all the notebooks, pencils, markers, crayons that you're going to need. All of those pieces that help us to meet the standards. But have you come back to this academic year with the supplies needed not just to teach, but to transform lives? Do you have what you need to sustain yourselves this year? We all know that education has undoubtedly changed as of late, and the demands put on each of you sitting in this gymnasium today are vast. But as you too are busy readying yourself for Wednesday, I ask you to think if you have a large enough supply of love, persistence, courage, empathy, and passion. And is it enough to carry you through this academic year? I took pause again, and I thought, do you have the love for oneself to know when that one more thing that you're asked to do is just too much to fit on your plate, and you need to say no? Do you have the persistence needed to get you through that long, muddy month of March that never seems to end when you're in the classroom? Do you have the courage needed to consistently advocate for the needs of your students? Do you have an empathetic ear ready to listen to a student or family who is struggling and asking for help? And finally, do you have the passion ignited within you to meet this new year head on and to make it the best year yet? While the work is great and sometimes daunting, the collective power of this district is inevitably strong. Just as when you're running low on paper or markers, you would visit a supply closet, I challenge each of you to work within your building and across this district to keep each other's supplies stocked. Be there for each other and for our students on both the brightest and the dimmest of days. The strength of ELPS is greater than any challenge that can inevitably come our way. So keep the supply closets full. And if you are ever in need, please know that the school committee, all of us, are here for you. This summer, I have to say, I've been binge watching Ted Lasso quite a bit, so I thought today I'd leave you with a quote from him. If you care about someone, and you've got a little love in your heart, then there ain't nothing the two of you can't do together. So on behalf of the entire school committee, have an amazing, amazing year. Our stellar students are lucky to have each and every one of you in front of them. I know and believe that there is nothing we at ELPS can't do together. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. Trulio. And now, a welcome back message from our co-presidents of the ELEA, Ms. Kristen Norden and Ms. Abby Steiner.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Chris and I are here today to make sure that our educators are fairly compensated and able to maintain a healthy work-life balance. As we enter into another contract negotiation year with the Unit A negotiations taking place, we will be looking for feedback from our members to guide us in establishing priorities for negotiation.
The East Long Meadow Education Association is here to support each other and to continue making sure our schools are meeting the academic, social, and emotional needs of our students. Have a great year and never hesitate to reach out to your union colleagues for support, advice, and guidance. Good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Norden and Ms. Steiner. Now we have the opportunity to welcome new individuals into our ELPS family. And this is a larger group this year, and we had an incredible day on Friday, so thank you to all of you who were able to attend on Friday. We're excited to have you join us. First off, in central office, we're welcoming a new individual, Ms. Candace Goyette, who is our Administrator for Health Services. Candy, here she is. And moving to the schools, we'll begin at our youngest school, Meadowbrook, and Miss Renee Lodi.
Good morning. I'm going to start with a very shameless plug first. I'm still looking for 4 paraprofessionals, 4 lunch and recess monitors, and a permanent building sub. If you know anyone, send them my way. We'd like to welcome this year Rebecca Widmer, a new CODA. Into a new position, we'd like to welcome Tracy Merrick, a former 2nd grade teacher, as our new literacy coach. We'd like to welcome Suzanne Thomas, a new 2nd grade teacher. Kayla DeStefano, a new preschool teacher. Teddy Jo Eaton, social emotional teacher. Megan Weiss, sorry high school, we had to take her. Long-term sub for social skills. Lauren Casey, long-term sub 1st grade. Kim Martin into a new position, long-term sub, gifted and talented teacher. Paraprofessionals, Elaine Nathan, Carrie Luz Delgado, Jackie Lorenzen, Carla Gutierrez, Renee Chisholm, Linda Berthium, Ryan Guncalves, Gina Willette, and Christina Parent. Hopefully I didn't forget anyone.
Thank you, Ms. Lodi. And now we'll move to the Mountain View School and Mrs. Santinello.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you all have a great year. Starting off, we have one of our Mountain View staff members moving to a new position. Patty Kurtanis is moving to 4th grade classroom teacher. So we have a new 4th grade special education teacher, Nicole Lemon. We have another new 4th grade classroom teacher, Allison Mulvey. We have 3 new paraprofessionals, Gabriela Pereira, Devin Jones, and Liz Taylor. And 2 of my building day-to-day subs have now decided to share our permanent building sub position, Sandy Wallowitz and Patty Colley. Thank you, everyone. Have a great year.
Thank you, Ms. Santinello. And now we'll move to Maple Shade School and Mr. Martin. There we go.
All right, good morning, everybody. Okay, so Maple Shade would like to welcome the following individuals to the shade. So up first in 3rd grade, Julie Quinn. Her 3rd grade paraprofessional will be, keeping it in the family, Abby Carey. We have 2 new 4th grade teachers that we're very excited to see join us, Stephanie McSweeney and Meg White. Our 2 permanent building subs have moved into new positions, and we are very excited for what they are going to accomplish throughout the course of the year. Up first for long-term sub in 5th grade, Mr. Seth Stuckman. And 5th grade paraprofessional, Linda Odell. Taking the place of the permanent building sub will be Carrie Bouchard. Stepping into the role of the inclusion teacher for 3rd grade will be Danielle Silva. And in the meantime, we are not welcoming to Maple Shade, we are welcoming back to Maple Shade to take over for the inclusion teacher until Danielle gets to us. That will be the one, the only Miss Joanne Brown. Thank you, everyone. Let's have a great year.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And now we'll move to the secondary level and to a gentleman who is moving into a new role himself. 3 years, 3 new roles. Mr. Steve Pearson, interim principal at Berkeley Park Middle School.
Good morning and welcome to Birchland. This is the first time in 10 years that the Birchland principals had to adjust the microphone up. So we are welcoming a lot of new people this year at Birchland. Some people are coming from within the district and joining us. So I would like to introduce Mr. Bruce Goldman is coming up from Maple Shade to join us. And Mr. Ryan McMullen, stand up. Wave, we want to see your beautiful self. There we go. Also joining us from Maple Shade, 8th grade English. We are welcoming Victoria Kelleher from the high school to join us in our SEL program. And we have Tracy Gagner coming up to work as a para in our life skills program. Sort of new, but we are welcoming Brinsley Chassie. She was a long-term sub for us last year. This year she's joining us in Tech Ed. We have Doug Catanzaro joining us in 7th grade English. Denise Cody is joining us as our literacy coach. And Kate Morneau is joining us as a special education liaison in 8th grade. We have some new paraprofessionals as well. We are welcoming Noah Fay in our SEL program. James Kelleher in our inclusion para. And Lyric LaMagdalene is going to be a para in our in our learning center. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year.
He's going to go. See that too. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. You can see that the lists are long. Ms. Lodi has 2 more people that she would like to introduce.
So sorry, I knew it was inevitable for me to forget someone, but we are welcoming into new positions this year. 2 of our permanent building subs, Regan O'Connor and Pat Scully, are now joining us as paraprofessionals as well.
And I did the same thing because I don't think this person is new. She is so close to my heart. But I have an assistant principal that's new for us this year at Birchland, moving up from a different role, Miss Natalie Ojunga Andrew.
We're just going to throw out the scripts. Without further ado, let's move to the high school and Mr. Frank Page.
We're good now.
You can adjust the mic.
All right, go up a little bit here. Okay, good morning, everyone. We have 5 new staff members that we want to welcome to Spartan Nation. First, we have Rachel Fountain joining us in the math department. We have Matt Doherty coming to us from Birchland Park. He's joining our special education department. We have Sarah McCullough joining us as a chemistry teacher. We have Dan Henry taking over our chorus program. And we have Sarah Callahan, who is going to be a long-term English sub for us. Now, I am going to make the same shameless plug as Renee. We had 3 paras leave us this summer and go on to teaching positions, which is awesome. But all 3 positions are currently open, so if you know anybody, post it on School Spring.
As I said, we have a large group joining us, which is just incredibly awesome. We are excited to have you work with us. Let's give them another round of applause. As we turn the page, no pun intended, Mr. Page. That was a joke. The energy that all of you bring, it was funny, you can give it a moment. There you go. As we come into this space each year, the energy that all of you bring re-energizes me, gets me excited, and I know that this is going to be just an incredible year. Your collective skill, creativity, and ability to connect and collaborate with your colleagues is truly amazing. Throughout my career, I've worked in 3 districts, 2 in Massachusetts, 1 in Connecticut. So I've seen what other districts do. It's amazing what happens when all of you come together. And it's one of the reasons why in 2010, when I was a high school principal and thinking, I'm doing this pretty well, and I saw the opening for superintendent of the East Long Meadow Public Schools open up, that I put my hat in the ring. Because I had connected with that energy back in 2002 for a brief moment, 2002 to 2004 as assistant principal of the high school. I saw the opportunity to reconnect with all of you again, and I seized it, and I've never looked back. Give yourselves a round of applause. Working with all of you, seeing you on a daily basis, engaging with your skills, your professionalism, and creativity makes me a better educator and a better leader. When you connect and collaborate with your colleagues, you all become better educators. And as a district, it's impressive. Thank you for that. This school year, we know we are going to need each other and that continued collaboration and creativity, especially as we welcome back our students on Wednesday. Every new school year is a new opportunity for building new relationships and strengthening the ones that already exist. We know that without a strong relationship with and an understanding of the students in our classes this year, not the students from last year, the students in our classes this year, True learning and growth at its highest level is not possible. This week and into September, do what you do best. Build those relationships in a climate of trust in your classrooms. Encountering change and challenge is inevitable in life, especially in the field of education, where every single year new faces show up in your room. Without change, growth is not possible for us or for our students. Lean on each other as we encounter new changes and challenges, because we will. We have paraprofessional openings, if you didn't realize, in a couple buildings. You all have tremendous capacity to adapt and overcome any new challenge. I have seen it. You have seen it. We all lived it. ELPS, along with the rest of the world, shut down on March 13th, 2020, and entered into a completely unknown new existence. As a district, we reconnected with each other virtually the very next week on Wednesday, March 18th. We ran a full day of virtual professional development, and by Thursday, March 19th, we were back up and running and presenting learning opportunities to our students, less than a week after the shutdown. So I'll say again, you have tremendous capacity to overcome any new challenges. Know that. Tap into it in yourself and especially in your colleagues as you engage them and collaborate with them. Be confident and bring the creative energy that you all have as we move into this school year. This confidence and creativity helps us bring the fun into learning for ourselves and especially for our students. The students do not need you to be perfect. They do not need you to be perfect. They simply need you. They'll meet you more than halfway. Have fun as you build those relationships, because we know it's that successful partnership where it all begins. And after all, isn't it that connection with our students and the joy of new learning, new achievement, and growth? Isn't that why we got into this field? There's no experience like it. Lean into it, enjoy it, and it will be an incredible year. Think about that for a moment, because I'm about to bring someone up who always brings the fun. I'm really excited to introduce our guest speaker this morning. He's always engaging and enthusiastic, and he always brings the fun. And I'm sure that's a key reason as to why he's been so successful as an entrepreneur, traveling his own unique journey. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Mr. Adam Oliveri, DLHS, class of 1997.
That was before Awaken 180 weight loss. Make a little chunkier up there. Thanks for having me. You guys know me as Adam Oliveri, the president of ELEAF. But more than that, I'm really just a son of East Long Meadow. I'm actually a grandson of East Long Meadow. My family's been here for over 60 years. We hear people all the time saying, oh, I want to move to East Long Meadow. I want to move into East Long Meadow because of the schools. And that's been happening forever. My grandmother, before she passed away in the 1950s, was dreaming and praying of someday moving her family here to East Long Meadow. And in 1962, her dream was realized, and she moved her family here. My father being 10 years old and his siblings came to East Long Meadow, and we've been here ever since. And my mother's family, they have an interesting story. In the 1960s, Mr. Traporis opened one of the quarries back up, and there were no stonecutters around, so he had to go up to Montreal. If you're looking for a lumberjack, you have to poke around the forest, and he was looking for stone cutters, so he had to go to Montreal. He found my uncle, my grandfather, who migrated down here in the early 1960s to be stone cutters. And they could speak a little English, but none of their children could. So my mother, her siblings, her cousins, none of them could speak English. They got to the East Long Meadow school system, and you guys helped teach them English. If you met my mother today, she doesn't even have an accent. You can't even tell that English is her second language. My parents graduated class of 1970, 1971. They fell in love at East Long Meadow High School. They got married at 18 and 19 years old, started in a little apartment in Agawam, and then to a little tiny house in Chicopee. And then their dream was to bring their kids back to this school system. And in 1983, right before I started kindergarten, their dream was realized, and they bought a Spade Cape over here on Hammered Hill. And they've been there ever since 1983, happily married 51 years, raised their 4 children. They have 11 grandchildren, 9 of them in the school system this year. And they wanted me to point out that they will have a child at every one of the schools. So just to make sure that we're on our best behavior, my mommy and daddy are here. They're the most supportive parents a man could ever ask for. Mom and Dad, please stand up. How about a round of applause for Renee and Rick Oliveri? Now, when I went to school, you did K through 4 in the elementary school, then to Birchland, then to the high school. So for me, that was Maple Shade. And then I went to Birchland, then the high school, class of 97. And then I went on to get an associate's at Stick in my degree in marketing from UMass Amherst. That's a little bit about me, but I want to piggyback on what Gordon had to say a little bit. And I want to talk a little bit about you guys. And I haven't been able to publicly thank you for what a tremendous job you did coming out of COVID. And I mean, it was such a crazy time. Half the town was, you know, under the bed with a blanket and a flashlight. The other half of the town was willing to lick a toilet seat just to prove it wasn't as big of a deal. And somehow you had to navigate your way through that. Somehow you had to navigate your way through that. And you did that with tremendous leadership from our school committee. They all left right before I started speaking, but Dr. Galint is still here. How are you, Doctor? But they gave us tremendous leadership, and Gordon gave you tremendous leadership, and somehow you fought your way through that. But there's a group of you that probably didn't get enough recognition, and I saw this firsthand. I'm not going to embarrass anybody, but I need you guys to stand up. If you're a nurse or in the nursing staff, stand up for a second. Where are our nurses? Unbelievable. They did an unbelievable job, and I saw it firsthand because I love all the nurses, but I love one of the nurses more than the rest. The nurse here at Birchland is my baby sister, Natalie Oliveri-Burak. I love her to death. And my adult story started with a conversation Natalie had in 1999 over here on Hammered Hill. I'll never forget it. The reminder had just been delivered, and there was a picture of this beautiful girl in front of the reminder. And she had just won Miss East Long Meadow. But I read the article, and she wasn't from East Long Meadow, she was from Hampton. And for the 3rd year in a row, the girl who won Miss East Long Meadow wasn't from East Long Meadow. It drove me nuts. And even at that age, I had a spark on my chest, and I said to Natalie, I said, you see this? Another girl wins Miss East Long Meadow, and she's not from East Long Meadow. Well, evidently, I lit a little flame in Natalie's heart, and it ticked her off, because the next year, Natalie grabbed that crown, dragged it back to East Long Meadow, Miss East Long Meadow 2000. Yes, she was. Yes, she was. And if you're not sitting here with me today, I am so excited. After Natalie had won, I ended up volunteering in the Junior Chamber of Commerce. I became the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and we threw that Miss America local pageant in Miss East Long Meadow. But unfortunately, we couldn't find volunteers, and the JCs are no longer. But for 15 years or so, there's been no Miss East Long Meadow, but it's back this year at the high school, November 18th, on my birthday. Bring me a gift, I'll be emceeing, and we're going to give away over $10,000 in scholarships. So come on out and support me. Now, I tell this story because about a year after Natalie won Miss East Long Meadow, I was at the Southern Art Friendlies, the little one that's no longer there. And the waitress came around the corner, and she was gorgeous. And I was like, oh, boy, this girl's gorgeous. And she said, can I get you a cup of coffee? It was like 6 in the morning. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. And I like wanted to talk to her, and I'm never tongue-tied. But I was tongue-tied, I didn't know what to say. And she came back and she said, are you Natalie Oliveri's brother? And I was like, oh, yes, I am. Thank you, Jesus. And we started talking, and we started dating, and that's how I met my wife. We've been together for 23 years, married 19 years. She was Miss East Longmeadow 1999 from Hamden. And at that point, I didn't care if she was born on Mars. I just wanted to meet her. So, we've been together for a long time. You guys may know she delivered a litter of children. We have Vinny, Vanessa, Victor, Vivian, vasectomy. We have all in our school system here. And we didn't know if we were going to raise our children here. We were like, we had big eyes. We were going to take over the world. And just 4 months after dating, she said, hey, will you take me to an audition at Boston University? Her talent was dance, and she wanted to be a professional dancer. And she said, hey, will you take me to this audition at Boston University? I want to be a professional dancer at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia, excuse me. So I said, sure. So I brought her there. And 450 girls showed up, so I didn't think much of it. And the next week, we get the news, they hired one girl, and they hired her. And I'm like, oh no. And I am a son of East Longmeadow. I had a bar stool named after me at the pizza shop. And I'm like, I don't know if I can go. But I thought of the courage, and I did what every guy at 20 years old would have done. And ultimately I finished my degree at UMass, but I chased after her. And getting very crooked Catholic looks from both sides of the family, we moved in together after 4 months down in Virginia. And down in Virginia, I got my first teaching job. That's why Gordon brought me in today. I know a lot about teaching. I was hired at Busch Gardens while she danced as a professor of Budweiser Beer School, where I educated my park guests for 45 minutes on the Beechwood aging process and the history of Anheuser-Busch. And if my students were good, I'd give them a diploma at the end of the class that they had graduated Budweiser Beer School. So that was an awesome time. I did that for 6 months, and then I was in a karaoke bar. I had a few Chardonnays. And I was having a good time with the entertainers, and I was singing, and I got off stage, and this talent scout came running up to me, and she said, oh my God, you'd be perfect at Busch Gardens. You're Maria's boyfriend, and I heard you can play the guitar. She said, I need a big guy to play some of these roles, and would you be interested? And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. But I ended up doing it. Unlike the tremendous odds Maria had to beat, I just had to show up, sing a couple songs, and next thing you know, I was cast as Maria's husband in the Oktoberfest celebration. She was Heidi, and I was Hans. And for 2 years, we were a married couple on this show. But when you're a young entertainer at Busch Gardens, they move you all over the park. So I was a 10-foot scarecrow on stilts in a Halloween show. I was the mayor of Ireland. I juggled pins. I was a French mime. And I did all these different things. We had a great time. But we wanted to do something else. And yet we had big dreams. So we moved to sort of the redneck Broadway of the South, Branson, Missouri. And we got another job together. She danced, I did some character acting and singing for an old-timer, Bobby Vinton, at the Blue Velvet Theater. And we did that for a season, then we moved home, and I was looking for my next gig, and this is where I got my second teaching job. This time for an Emmy Award-winning children's theater that traveled all over the country, educating children on nutrition and exercise. And this was my favorite job I ever had. So for 2 years, I went to 300 school systems all over the country, from the tip of Maine down to Yuma, Arizona, and everywhere in between. I would go into schools every morning just like this, except I wouldn't go as Adam Oliveri, the president of ELEAF and a son of East Longmeadow. I went in as Toby Fit, spelled T-O-B-E-F-I-T, To Be Fit. And we would juggle clubs, we'd hook the audience and tell them why broccoli and spinach were so great and why Skittles weren't a good choice for breakfast. But at that moment, I got to see all these school systems, and I realized nothing was like East Longmeadow. And I said to Maria, if God blesses us with children, I want to raise them here in East Longmeadow. She agreed. We came home. We bought a tiny little house behind CVS. It should have been condemned. The woman had just passed away. There were 10 dogs living in the cabinets. But we cleaned it all up. We got married in 2004. And Maria really turned that house into a home. We've been here ever since. And Gordon said to me, Adam, come out, tell your story. It's so fun. And but what is it about East Longmeadow that makes you want to give back to ELEAF? And why do you give your time and resources to the school system? And I thought about it hard, and it's really just because I spent all my yesterdays here. I know everything about East Long Meadow. I know everything about a lot of your families. And there's just no place like home. When I close my eyes here, 39 years ago, I was a few days away from my first day of kindergarten. When I closed my eyes, I could picture what Maple Shade looked like, because it looks exactly the same. Same school. Same exact school. But I went to Maple Shade, and if you pull in recently, I was thinking about what I was going to say. It says Davis Way. I knew Mrs. Davis. I could smell her perfume. I could see her beautiful smile. I remember Mr. Bousquet with his oversized sideburns and his bell-bottom pants. And I remember Miss Lorette scratching her nails on the top of my head when I would walk through Maple Shade. It seems like yesterday, and then I came to Birchland, and I met Mr. O'Hearn. And Mr. O'Hearn was tough. Oh, he was tough, but he was fair. And he'd put little pieces of knowledge up on his board. And to this day, 45 years old, I still remember those silly things. I remember the capital of Somalia is Mogadishu because of Mr. O'Hearn. And they weren't silly pieces of information. I'm better at Jeopardy because of Mr. O'Hearn. If Mr. O'Hearn were here right now, there's no doubt he'd be the smartest person in this room. That man knew everything. And he was tough, but you wanted to impress him. You wanted to work hard. And during recess, if you wanted to stay in, he ate his lunch at his desk, and you could go in and still work through your recess, and he would stay during lunch. At Birchland, I met Mr. G, Mr. Gonzalez. I never met a teacher like Mr. Gonzalez to teach with such passion. This man walked in every single day with the same energy I'm hoping you guys walk into school with, every day. He said the same two things. He said, let's get down to the meat and potatoes of today's math class. And there's a do now exercise on the board. And he said it every day. And he had Sparky, his little chalk holder. Back then we had chalkboards. And he had Sparky, his little chalk holder, but he would come in like a hurricane. And I mean no disrespect, but I'll use my acting to impersonate Mr. Gonzalez a little bit. This is literally how he'd come in every day. Bam! Door open, go. Let's get down to the meat and potatoes of today's math class. There's a do now exercise on the board. Then he starts firing away. Here's the why, the Z. He'd start yelling about Gauss. And we were like, who is Gauss? Like, he talked about Gauss like it was his best friend. For you math nerds, Carl Friedrich Gauss was born in 1777, died in 1855. But Mr. G was buddies with Gauss. I mean, literally, every second he'd start yelling about Gauss. As Gauss told me, he said. I'm like, oh my God, how's he know Gauss? So I'm hoping you guys come with that same energy. And don't just take my word for it. I went to stick in UMass. My cousin Joe Oliveri went to Harvard. He went to George Washington. He was the valedictorian here at East Long Meadow High School. And he credits Mr. G with some of his success. And in 2014, I went down to my cousin Joe's wedding down in Tennessee. And I stood there to bear witness. And I'm standing there as my cousin's taking this woman's hand in marriage. And I look out, and who's in the crowd? 13 years after my cousin graduated high school, Mr. G, in the crowd to support my cousin Joe. And just 2 or 3 years ago, Joe's wife, who's a big-time attorney and now a judge, she was getting sworn in as a judge. This was 3 years ago. My cousin's 37 at the time. Mr. G showed up, and he was there in Tennessee. So that's how amazing Mr. G was. He's been great to our family. I'm getting excited. Then I went to the high school. And when I got to the high school, I didn't need to learn anything because I had all the answers. I knew everything. I was a real handful. I don't know how many touchdown passes Tom Brady ended up in his career. I don't know how many he tossed. But I promise you that combined Morrissey and Bale tossed me out of more classes. I was getting kicked out of everything. I'd walk in, say two things, boom, I was gone. I cared more about my social life and trying to get a date with, somebody that weekend, Tiffany Kate or Sweet Bonnie Wade. I don't know whatever happened to that Bonnie Wade, but we've always had great educators, and we have them now. 8 years ago, it was summertime. I ran into an old friend I played ball with, Mr. Steele, and I was with my young nephew. And I said to my nephew, I said, "Oh, this is Mr. Steele. He teaches math over at Birchland." And my nephew goes, "Well, I hate math." Mr. Steele's eyes lit up. He looked down at my nephew and said, "That's impossible. You can't hate math. Math's everywhere. What's your favorite sport?" "Baseball." "Well, think about it. The bases are 90 feet, perfect right angles. The pitcher's mound, 60 feet, 6 inches. Take this number, divide it by that number. That'll give you your batting average, all math." And I looked at my nephew, And he, in that moment, Mr. Steele, became Mr. Gonzalez to my nephew. And a few years after that, I ran into an old friend, Kelly Jones. You know her as Kelly Frankenkiewicz, forget your name, I don't know. Kelly, is Kelly here? Kelly, I love you. Kelly and I met because her first cousins came to East Long Meadow schools, and we became friends. And I ran into Kelly like a few years after I ran into Mr. Steele. And I said, Kelly, what are you up to? She said, oh, I teach in another school system, but Kathy Hood's retiring, and I'd love to get Kathy's job. And Kathy was one of my favorites. I loved Kathy Hood. And I left that conversation going, oh, God, if Gordon gets this right, we're going to get Kelly, forget your name is. And we got her. Kelly's here. Kelly's here. We got it. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And that sweet Bonnie Raitt, as you know, is Bonnie Rivera. And I like to joke about Bonnie Rivera, but Bonnie and I are friends, and she is so passionate about children learning Spanish. And I said to her one time, I shouldn't have, but I said, why is it so important for these young kids to learn Spanish anyway? And boom, she bent my ear for like an hour. I'm confident if I gave Bonnie Rivera $1 million, she wouldn't buy a fancy car or a second home. She'd fly in 100 kids from all over the world and give them the American experience. And she'd have those kids teaching our kids Spanish and our kids helping them with English. I'm confident of that because she's asked me to do it. And I promise you, Bonnie. Most people ask for a couple of notepads for the 3rd grade class. Bonnie's like, I need $1 million. So, Bonnie, someday, in front of everybody, I've got big dreams. Someday I'm going to get you that money and we're going to start that program. So, in closing, I just wanted to come down here and try to get you guys a little bit excited. I want to remind you that my parents are here. They've got a kid in every school. We need this to be a really awesome school year. And so we'll end on a high note here. Let's get excited and cheer for each other. You know, Kathy Hood rode off into the sunset, but we've got Kelly, forget your name is, right? And Gonzalez is gone, but we got Mr. Steele. And we got Rivera. And we got all of you, and we've got amazing nurses, a great leader in Gordon Smith, a tremendous school committee. Hey, I can't bake a cake like Pete from Pete Sweets, but I can tell you that you guys have all the ingredients you need to bake yourself one heck of a school year. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm honored and privileged. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's nice that in 14 years I got one decision right, so glad you're here, Kelly. Together, let's make it a great year. Good luck. We love you.